Welcome to this episode of Uplifting News Sleep Aid Daily, where we read you good news to fall asleep to. Today is Thursday, April 16th, 2020. Our uplifting stories include gourmet food prepared for frontline workers, large house party in the UK allowed to continue, a 21-year-old trans advocate who helped craft school policies, and Yayoi Kusama writes a poem about coronavirus. Now, breathe in. Breathe out. And relax as we dive into these stories. Our first story is from Time by Jocelyn Gecker. Feeding frontline workers amid coronavirus outbreaks, one duck confit at a time. Nurse practitioner Gabe Westheimer tucked into a plate of duck confit, the work of one of the city's celebrity chefs. It was wonderful. Meanwhile, at another San Francisco emergency room, Nurse Liz Sanderson still savors a sea salt caramel bread pudding from another posh eatery. It was possibly the best thing I've ever eaten. The best of food is being sampled in the worst of times by the most besieged of heroes, all thanks to a group of San Francisco friends who had the idea of helping both local restaurants that need customers and healthcare workers who need nourishment during their long, stressful shifts. They sought donations and started small, with one restaurant and one hospital. 2 weeks later, 42 restaurants, among them some of the city's finest, are churning out hundreds of meals a day to feed clinicians in emergency rooms and ICUs at San Francisco's 6 biggest hospitals. They have so far raised over $350,000 and have delivered about 5,000 meals with funding for thousands more. And a newly formed network, aptly named Frontline Foods, has linked up with similar projects in more than a dozen cities. It's also in touch with groups like Feed the Frontline LA to the south to ensure they don't double deliver to the same hospital. The original idea was born March 12th in a text message exchange between entrepreneur Frank Barbieri and his friend Sydney Gressel, an emergency room nurse at UCSF Medical Center at Mission Bay. Barbieri knew Gressel was working double shifts in the battle against COVID-19 and texted, "What can I do to help?" "I suggested he could buy us dinner," Gressel said. He took it to the next level. Ryan Sarver, a tech-savvy venture capitalist, tapped contacts in the restaurant world and helped solicit donations, initially for $1,000 that would fund 50 meals for healthcare workers priced at $20 each. Now, smaller donations can be made. The money goes straight to the restaurants. We tell them, "You've got $20 to spend and we need a well-balanced, healthy meal, a starch, a protein, and vegetable that is going to sustain these people," said Sarver. That $20 has to cover the cost of food and delivery, but many chefs have been personally delivering their own food after spending the day cooking and packing it into hundreds of individual boxes. Chef Kim Alter, who usually charges about $150 for a meal at Nightbird, her acclaimed San Francisco restaurant, has been donning masks and gloves in the kitchen and when she pulls her car up to hospitals to deliver her meals. "People are afraid of going to a hospital. I feel like it's my responsibility to do it," said Alter. Nightbird, known for its 10-course tasting menus, doesn't do takeout, so effectively lost all business when San Francisco went into a lockdown. Alter says now she can keep her staff employed. "We're trying to make everything beautiful," she said. One of her early meals included flowers and microgreens still in her restaurant's refrigerator, so their salads had $100 worth of flowers on it. That the meals are appreciated is an understatement. "It puts a smile on my face for sure," said Nurse Sanderson. "And it feels like everyone is supporting us. It makes me want to work even harder." Our next article is from Sky News by Richard Williams. Police called to large house party, but find people singing and dancing in front gardens. An entire street in the UK held a party on their front gardens during the coronavirus lockdown, with police allowing it to continue because everyone was abiding by social distancing rules. Officers turned up to a South Coast Party Avenue in Hull after apparently being informed a large house party was underway. But after arriving to see residents, young and old, dancing and singing in front of their homes as a DJ and singer blasted out a string of uplifting numbers, organizers say they were told they were fine to continue. The event on Friday night was inspired by the now weekly Clap for Our Carers show of support each Thursday for NHS staff on the front line of the struggle to combat the coronavirus outbreak. Primary school teacher Chris Marshall, who is a DJ and professional singer in his spare time, told Sky News how the party came about. It was put together by the local Facebook group initially because there was concern that some of the elderly and vulnerable people may be suffering from the isolation, he said. We're quite lucky in that everyone has a walled-off front garden. We'd all come out to clap for the carers on the previous Thursday, and people were chatting over from their front gardens, and we were saying it's a shame we can't have a little front garden party. He said a message was posted on the local residents' Facebook group to establish whether the idea was popular, and the response showed huge support. I agreed to sing and DJ on the condition that people stayed in their front gardens and maintained social distancing, he said. Mr. Marshall said people in the street requested he perform uplifting songs and sing-along numbers such as Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline. I think one of the favorites was, I Want to Break Free, he added. Mr. Marshall said that the event brought the street together, adding, it was great. People were singing and dancing. You could see people bringing their furniture through to the front gardens. But he said he feared the worst when police arrived. A police car came crawling down the road and I thought, oh no, how is this going to look? He said. The officer came up to me and said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. He said they had had reports of a large house party, but that they weren't expecting this. After a quick wander around, he said, you're not breaking any of the rules and you're fine to carry on. He told us, it's nice to see people happy. They even flashed the blue lights for the children as they left. He said no further events has been planned yet, but he felt the party had been a huge success. For that brief moment, it was a real boost for everyone. We're going through a lot at the moment, and if we can work within the rules to bring people a bit of happiness, then we should do that. This has made connections that will last longer than all of this will. Another resident of the street, Aaron Howlett, said the event had united households in the street. People you say hi to each day are now much more, he told Sky News. There is something very special happening amidst all of the uncertainty, which is extremely heartwarming. Humberside Police praised the officers involved for displaying common sense. Officers attended and spoke to a number of people who were all in their front gardens with members of their own household and fully adhering to social distancing guidelines, the force's Chief Constable Lee Freeman said. Officers gave words of advice and requested the guidance was continued to be adhered to, and left the local community to safely make the most of enjoying their evening. This podcast is hosted on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free, there's creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Our next story is from the Philadelphia Inquirer by Stephanie Farr. She left her all-boys school after coming out as trans. Now, she leads LGBTQ trainings there. Meet Hazel Edwards, a 21-year-old trans advocate who helped craft the Philadelphia School District's policy on transgender and gender non-conforming youth. Hazel Edwards was 4 months away from graduation at Boys Latin of Philadelphia Charter School in 2015 when the principal called Edwards into his office to discuss ongoing tardiness and absence issues. What the principal didn't know is that Edwards had been missing classes at the all-boys schools because she identified as a girl and didn't feel comfortable there. "I told the principal I was trans," Edwards said. The principal was like, "Whoa, I was not expecting this." Edwards said the principal, a sweet person who didn't know what to do, brought in another staff member who told Edwards she was a boy and couldn't come to school with her hair or nails done. She said she wasn't kicked out, but did feel pushed out. "I packed up my stuff and never went back to that school as a student," Edwards said. But later that year, Edwards did go back to Boys Latin, not as a student, but as an educator with the Attic Youth Center to help train 86 teachers on the best practices for working with LGBTQ students. "That was the first time I walked into that school as Hazel," said Edwards, who continues to lead training at Boys Latin. "I got so much good feedback from former teachers, and the principal came up to me, started crying, and said, 'The student is now the teacher.'" Noah Tennant, then principal and now CEO of Boys Latin, said he doesn't remember the details of Edwards' departure, but confirmed the comment he made at the training. "It really added a whole extra layer of relevance for us that Hazel walked our corridors and classrooms," Tennant said. "The first-hand knowledge she had was invaluable to us as we thought about how we can grow." Edwards grew up in Overbrook Park with her mother, brother, and sister. Her father was incarcerated when she was 9, she said. For many years, Edwards didn't have the language of trans to express herself. She said it wasn't until she met a trans woman her own age when she was 17 that she fully realized what she always felt. "I was fighting it in mental hospitals and behavioral hospitals," she said. "After meeting that trans person and seeing how happy they were and how unhappy I felt, I said, okay, now this is a time of life or death." After she came out, Edwards' relationship with her mother became rocky, and for a time she experienced homelessness. The Attic, a center for LGBTQ youth, gave Edwards a paid internship during that tough period. Since 2017, she's worked full-time as an educator and outreach specialist there. In 2016, Edwards helped University of Professor Amy Hillier, whose daughter is trans, develop a policy for the Philadelphia School District on protecting transgender and gender nonconforming youth. Hillier said she was impressed by Edwards' ability to navigate institutions and inspire other young people. "For someone who has a tough story, she's just so full of love and optimism and energy," Hillier said. "It's remarkable that somebody who has had as challenging a journey as she could be so gracious." Edwards has even become a mentor for Hillier's 10-year-old trans daughter. "My daughter said, 'Hazel is fancy,' which is high praise," Hillier said. Outside of Edwards' advocacy work, for which she's won local and national awards, Edwards is also a member of the Black and Brown Workers Cooperative and enjoys performing and painting, particularly around themes of Black love, queer and trans love and liberation, and the universe. Edwards, who now has her GED, plans to attend college to become an art therapist and community organizer for the queer and trans communities. "I want to be an art therapist because all of the things I wasn't able to vocalize when I was young, I was still able to get out through my art," she said. Our last article is from CNN by Fiona Sinclair Scott. Yayoi Kusama orders coronavirus to disappear from this earth in a new poem. World-famous Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama offered up a brief moment of pause Wednesday through the power of a poem she wrote about the coronavirus pandemic. "Today, with the world facing COVID-19, I feel it necessary to address it with this message," she writes on the Victoria Miro Gallery website. The poem that follows extends words of hope, love, and defiance. "To COVID-19 that stands in our way," she writes, I say disappear from this earth. The 91-year-old artist, known for her obsession with dots and her widely popular exhibition installations, says now is the time to stand up, expressing gratitude to those who are already fighting. Though it glistens just out of reach, I continue to pray for hope to shine through. Its glimmer lighting our way, this long-awaited cosmic glow. Now that we find ourselves on the dark side of the world, the gods will be there to strengthen the hope we have spread throughout the universe. For those left behind, each person's story and that of their loved ones, it is time to seek a hymn of love for our souls. In the midst of this historic menace, a brief burst of light points to the future. Let us joyfully sing the song of a splendid future. Let's go. Embraced in deep love and the efforts of people all over the world, now is the time to overcome, to bring peace. We gathered for love, and I hope to fulfill that desire. The time has come to fight and overcome our unhappiness. To COVID-19 that stands in our way, I say disappear from this earth. We shall fight. We shall fight this terrible monster. Now is the time for people all over the world to stand up. My deepest gratitude goes to those who are already fighting. Revolutionist of the World by Art, from Yayoi Kusama. That's it for tonight. Whoever you are and wherever you are, thank you for joining us at Uplifting News Sleep Aid Daily. Happy birthday, Dad. Stay safe and stay inside.